Welcome in to episode 36 of Between Services. We are glad that you have joined us, and we have a very special episode of Between Services tonight. And so I'll let Brent introduce our special guest, who is no stranger to the podcast. But Brent, how was your weekend? And go ahead and introduce our good friend Kevin.
Kevin Miller from Gamecock Central with us tonight, and longtime friend of the program. So very happy to have Kevin here for this special edition of Between Services tonight. And my weekend was awesome because I got to go see George Strait last night, venue aside in Clemson. But it was pretty awesome. Me and my parents and my wife went and told them I felt like I was 8 years old sitting with my parents, sitting there singing George Strait songs like I was whenever I got to go see George Strait with them a bunch whenever I was little. So it was pretty awesome.
Kevin, weekend, good? Some time with the family?
We had a lot kind of on the schedule yesterday, but sometimes you got to do that on the weekend. So it was good though. It's good. Glad to have some other things maybe off the to-do list. And Brent knows exactly what I'm talking about. So it was a good weekend, and looking forward to being with you guys tonight.
Glad that you are here, and we're going to go ahead and start off with some 36s. We got a lot to pack into this episode, so we're gonna dive into 36s. And you know what? I'm gonna go first for a change, and then we'll let Kevin and then Brent will bring up the rear, because when we talk about 36, there is only one 36, and that's DJ Swearinger.
Good starting point. That's a good starting point. I will, because he is the current 36. I will throw out Landon Kurtz.
I had no idea. I'll go Stoney Woodson.
Frank Robinson.
Jerome Bettis.
Andre Offing.
Greg Maddox.
Shaquille O'Neal, Celtics edition.
Jermaine Lemon.
The only other Celtic to wear 36, Marcus Smart.
How about this guy who was a Celtic, didn't wear 36 in Boston, but then wore 36 after Boston, Dave Cowens.
Hunter Rogers.
Gaylord Perry.
Dario Saric.
Legend.
One of Ray Tanner's Killer Bees in 2000, Scott Barber.
Trash can himself, Carlos Beltran.
That's a good one. Leroy Butler. Green Bay Packers.
Yep. Mike Sisko.
Beer can himself, David Wells.
Yes. Boomer.
Boomer. I had a good Brave in my head a little bit ago, and I am blanking.
I got plenty of Braves.
Yeah. I might be out for an early exit here. Yeah, I'm out.
See, we do research at this podcast.
It's called cheating. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. David Marchbanks.
I believe the iconic Brave you're looking for is Eli White.
Yes, that's the one I was about to say.
Iconic.
College World Series hero Brady Thomas.
Ian Anderson.
Hunter Taylor.
Mark Melanson.
TJ Shook.
Colby Allard.
Cade Austin.
Mike Minor.
Mike Miner
Aaron,
was the one that I was thinking of.
one of Garth's favorite Braves pitchers ever, Aaron Blair.
Paul Bird.
Scott Proctor, the Julio Lugo game.
Russ Springer.
Boone Logan.
Terrell Wade.
Chuck James.
Kenny Schrader.
Dadgummit. That car gives me PTSD, by the way. Does anybody know why?
No.
That was the other car involved in Dale Earnhardt's accident. The guy that drove that car before Kenny Schrader, Ernie Irvin.
Larry Thomas.
J.J. Yaley.
H.B. Bailey.
Derek Cope.
Dave Blaney.
Boris Sid.
Reed Sorensen.
Jeremy Mayfield.
Mike Skinner.
Scott Riggs.
Casey Mears.
Jerry Nadeau.
David Cohn.
Brian Westbrook.
Fernando Valenzuela.
Chris Spielman.
Albert Bell.
Georgia fullback legend Brennan Sutherland.
Don Newcomb.
And my last one, in honor of George Strait, his 36th number one hit, Carried Away.
That's awesome. Brian Westbrook. Lawyer Malloy.
I already
you?
said it. We tie.
That's it. Lawyer Malloy. Some good ones in there. I didn't even get to Joe Necro.
I forgot to say Jared Weaver.
Joe Necro. Joe Necro's a good one.
The star of Moneyball, Kevin Youkilis.
What do they call him? A unicorn?
Yeah.
Steve Bedrosian's another Brave. 36,
yes, he is.
I forgot.
I didn't know Stan Belinda played for the Braves and wore 36 until I was looking up some of this stuff.
Yeah, I guess I should have done some research. My apologies.
Yep. Well, Kevin is not just here for his knowledge on 36s and his great insight into the Gamecocks and all things that are the history of Brent Silvia. Kevin's got a special reason for being here tonight, and Brent, I'm going to let you and Kevin take it away for announcement that we've been waiting on for a little while here on. We've kind of teased and alluded to, and I was actually watching a little bit from the last time Kevin was with us, and we talked about, hey, we might talk about that down the road. So, Brent, Kevin, let y'all take that away.
We've been teasing this for a little while, and we are finally very, very, very excited to announce that over the last 2 years, Kevin and I have been working very hard on this project, and we can finally go ahead and announce to the public that on August 18th, the Spurrier Effect, How One Coach Transformed Gamecock Football, will be published and available to the public. This book is something that we've been working very hard on. It goes through Steve Spurrier's tenure at South Carolina, and we are very excited to have this out there. Connor Shaw wrote the foreword for the book. There is a personal note from Steve Spurrier in there, and you can purchase. You can go ahead and pre-purchase the book on Amazon. We'll link this all this stuff in the show notes whenever this comes out. But whenever you guys are listening to this on Wednesday, we can that'll be the time that everybody gets to go ahead and have it available to the world to pre-purchase. So it's on Amazon, uscpress.com, or you can purchase copies from Kevin and myself. And Kevin has this project started in June of 2024, and Kevin was the first person that I reached out to because there was zero way that I had any ability to tackle this project on my own. And we'll get into the process of how this went down here in a little bit. But Kevin, we're very excited to finally have this thing face the public for the first time.
No doubt about that. And I just want to kind of add a note about it too. I know Brent said that there is a message from Coach Spurrier in it, but like he played an active role throughout this process. He met with me and Brent and would also randomly call Brent to chat and add a few other things to the book so that it's not just, my words and Brent's words. Like the majority of the information here that that would not just come from, basic research and remembering things comes straight from the head ball coach himself, which is a cool bit of this book. But it's one of those things where a guy like Spurrier has multiple books written about him, but this one looks a little bit different than the others. Not only does it strictly focus on his time at South Carolina, it is, like Steve Spurrier, all about ball. It goes through every game of the Spurrier era. Some of them just have a really small note because there's not a whole lot of reason to break them down too much. Some of them have multi-page breakdowns. So we go through every game of the Spurrier era, give you some behind the scenes of what was going on during each of those seasons, during the off seasons, recruiting stuff, the hiring process, the press conference, all sorts of things like that. There's even a chapter at Coach's request, even on his lovely bride, Miss Jerry. And we're really excited that this is now no longer a halfway secret. It is now able to be public, and we're just really excited for anybody who wants to join us in the journey that we've been on the past couple of years putting this thing together.
Kevin, you mentioned I'm thankful to Brent to get a little snippet, a little preview, and I'm actually reading about Miss Jerry right now, and so that's I'm enjoying it so far. Well, tell me a little bit about this, and we'll dive a little bit more into the process rather than content. But how did this happen? Obviously, this is something most fans would not even think to broach, but much less to get Coach Spurrier involved, as you just talked about, Kevin. So tell us a little bit about how this came together.
Yeah, well, I got a text from Brent, I don't know, probably January or February of 2024 that said, "Hey, let's write a book about Spurrier." And I think I responded with LOL. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I had any idea in my mind that this would actually be feasible because as Brent continued to kind of flesh out his idea, and I do want to make sure I credit him there. This was Brent's idea. When he kind of fleshed it out more, he made it clear that this didn't need to just be a book about Spurrier. It needed to be a book that like Spurrier approved of and took a part in creating. And I was like, okay, I mean, we can talk about it, but this ain't ever gonna happen.
Nope.
And he sent an email to Coach's office at the University of Florida, and I was like, that email's never gonna get answered. So, I'm not gonna put too much work into the front end of this yet. It's never gonna get answered. And then one day, I think in April of that year, was it June?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the super regionals were going on for college baseball. That's the only reason I remember that.
Okay. Well, I get a like three texts really quickly from Brent all in a row. One of them was a picture. One of them was just a bunch of exclamation points. And I don't even remember what the third one said, but it had a couple of actual words in it. But the picture was a screenshot of like the iPhone screen whenever you have a call. It said S Spurrier on it. And as soon as he was done with that, he called me and we talked for way too long, even though it was getting kind of late, and it became real. And it's been a really cool journey, and one that on multiple levels I never thought was going to happen. But here we are, and not only was it happening, now it's done and it's ready, and it'll be out soon. So it was really cool, and obviously we can talk more about the ins and outs of the actual book, and the process there. But I think it's just kind of cool the way it happened because, frankly, as one of the two authors of this book, I didn't think it was gonna.
Whenever I guess that idea popped up early 2024, and that just kind of got put on the back burner. And then it's kind of interesting because of what the devotion is going to be about later in the show. But it really started to be something that I said, all right, we're going to try this because it was right around the time that seniors had already left for the semester. So I teach seniors, and I was sitting in my classroom and I was bored out of my mind, and I said, nobody's really written a book about Spurrier's time here. The Believer documentary was just on. I mean, it was most of it had to deal with his time at Florida, which deservedly so. That's what Spurrier is most well known for, was transforming the SEC in the 1990s. But I said that I thought that story needed to be told about his time at South Carolina. And Kevin mentioned the email. That was literally how this started. I reached out to a couple people, and I said, how in the world do we get in touch with Steve Spurrier? A high school teacher in Blythewood. How do I do this? And I literally just threw a Hail Mary, and I found his email as he works back at the University of Florida now as an ambassador. And I included it. I said, hey, I've self-published a book about my dad and my time, going to Carolina games, and I'm the head golf coach at Blythewood, and I coach football, and I'm a teacher, blah blah blah. But if you'll allow me, I said I would love to write this story, never thinking that that I would get a response, and B, that he would want to be as involved in it as he was throughout this whole thing. And it was Friday night of the Super Regionals for college baseball opening up, and I remember my wife Hannah was out showing a house to somebody, and I just put my daughter to bed. I'm literally laying her down. The door is still open, sound machine's still going, and my watch starts vibrating. And like Kevin said, the suggested caller ID said S. Spurrier, and I said, there ain't no way. Because I never thought that he would call me or anything, because I did include my cell phone number in there. And I answered the phone, and he says, Brent, this Coach Spurrier, how'd your golf season at Blythewood go? And I was like, are you sure you have the right number? No telling what my voice actually sounded like. But we sat there, and we talked for probably 20 minutes. I mean, just small talk, about, he was talking about Blythewood and talking about Columbia and how much Miss Jerry loves Columbia and how much they still love Columbia. And he started just popping off, these random memories of games and players that he coached here. And then, probably the last 5 or 10 minutes of that call, he said, and this is something that we included in the book, his quote that still stands out to me, because I told him it was a story that I wanted to tell. And his quote was, yeah, it's a great story to tell. He said, so I want to, he said, let's do it. That was the thing that stands out, is he wanted to be involved in it. And he said, yeah, I'll come up there in August or whenever. He said, I'll come up there later this summer, and, we'll sit down and talk. And I'm like, wow, he's not only going to let us do this, but, he's going to be a part of it. And over the summer, he would just randomly call me, and then he came up in August, and he and I sat down and got to go meet Miss Jerry that day. And but after that phone call in June, like Kevin said, I hung up the phone with him, And I called Kevin, and I was like, this is actually going to be happening. So after, and Kevin, I don't know about you, but after that, it was, all right, we got to get a plan together because we started doing an outline, and we started, drafting, rough drafts and trying to get a plan, where do we start? I mean, because we were trying to figure out where do we start this thing. And we talked to some really cool people about it. And, this wasn't just mine and Kevin's project. There were so many people that helped us and gave us advice and gave us stories and, helped us get to where we are. And, we'll talk about some of those people that we talked to along the way in this process here later. But it's been really, really gratifying to get to where we are right now. And it's been something that Kevin and I are both very proud of to be a part of.
And I have no part in this story. I'm just thankful I get to ask you guys about it. But I can remember I'm standing in my kitchen, and I just get that same screenshot, Kevin. And I was like, one, the fact that just pops up. Two, I think my response was, and so, because I had no idea, that you even broached this. And so, just a very, very, it's really the story of, hey, shoot your shot, which is impressive. And so, what's been the coolest? Obviously, you're getting to sit down and work on a project with Steve Spurrier. That's just cool in itself. But what's been that kind of outlier cool thing that Brent, that you've kind of taken away from this?
Probably that it's still impossible to me, and I've shared this with both of y'all, that I'll just get random phone calls from Steve Spurrier, and it's not about how's the book going. He just calls to chat. Yeah. Or Georgia or whoever, or, just like the current landscape of college football. He's just been such an awesome person to get to know over the last couple of years. And, just those random phone calls that I get, it's really, really, really hard for me to wrap my mind around that I am somebody that Steve Spurrier will pick up the phone, because Hamilton, you can tell the story about what your caddy at Sage Valley said about this. And that's so true, because I'm like, me? He calls me of all people. Like, I remember just a random phone conversation that he and I had was the day after, or no, minutes after the Carolina-Clemson game in Clemson, when Lenore Sellers scored the touchdown. I talked to him on the phone 5 minutes after that game ended, and he's just bragging about, how awesome Lenore Sellers was that game, and, just so many just cool moments like that. Getting to talk to Miss Jerry has always been a really cool part of this process. Connor Shaw writing the forward for it was really cool. Just another really cool thing that people that have helped us write this and edit and look over it, they all say kind of the same thing, is it's been such a fun thing for them to just kind of go back through in their memories, kind of walking through it with us, just these great memories that they have had going through this and recalling what is undoubtedly, to this point, the greatest era in Carolina football.
Yeah, Kevin, what would you say? Obviously, for you getting that call from Brent of like, hey, let's do this, and I'll put skepticism as a word in your mouth, and you can spit it out if you would like. But for you, once this ball started rolling, kind of how was that for you?
I mean, it was unbelievable, really, because I mean, as I mentioned earlier, and as you, I think, accurately put it, I was skeptical. I It wasn't that I didn't think we could, write something. It was more of I didn't think the vision, of actually like, hey, we want something that Coach Spurrier would like and potentially be a part of and all that. I just didn't think we'd be able to pull it off. And, I got to give a lot of credit to Brent for, sticking his neck out there, so to speak. And, once the ball got rolling, it was kind of one of those situations where, you have a million things running through your mind and you start putting things to paper, or I guess, digital paper these days, but you start putting ideas out there. And there's various times where like Brent shouldered a lot of the load and other times where, I'm doing a lot of the work, but it was just one of those things where we were always able to, just keep it going. We were always able to continue. And I think one of the coolest things about this process is just getting to see Steve Spurrier like as he is. And what I mean by that is you actually get like the genuine article and you realize like everything that you saw in press conferences and on the sideline, like that's who he is. Like he's consistent. And there were some things that he told us that I vividly remember him saying word for word a decade earlier or 15 years earlier in a press conference. Like vividly would remember, and to see him have that consistency was cool, but also just to get a glimpse into him away from football a little bit. He truly adores his wife.
Yes.
And an unfortunate reality is there are not enough of, I'll just put it this way, a lot of big time folks in athletics these days. There's not enough of them that truly love their spouses. And Steve Spurrier loves his wife, Jerry, and he made that very clear to us. And it wasn't just like one thing where he's like trying to make sure it sounded good that like, hey, I love my wife, make sure you put that in the book. Like it was consistent and throughout various conversations and times, like I mean, he really pushed for Jerry to have her own chapter in the book, and so she does. I remember him talking about the new, well, it's not new anymore, but it was once new, the indoor practice facility at South Carolina and how it's named after them, but her name is first, and he pointed that out, and like, I mean, he was so proud of that, and I just think it's a really cool thing to see, especially, I mean, he's 81 now, and you see that this 81-year-old ball coach, like he's willing to let it be known how much he loves his wife, and that's something that doesn't happen enough these days, I think.
And I will say that comes out. That comes out very clearly in the chapter about Miss Jerry.
Well, that was what I was about to say. Is one thing that I realized throughout this process is Steve Spurrier is not the successful coach that he is without her. And it was very, very, very evident that she had to have a very big part and a very key role in this book, just because that's just how important she was to his success, and to the culture of his program, and just how important that she was to be around. The Florida guys back in the 90s, and the Carolina players that we talked to, and the coaches that we talked to, that they always talk about Spurrier, but every single one of them, they always bring Miss Jerry up. It doesn't matter if it was a media person, a player, a coach, somebody that knows him, they always bring Miss Jerry up. And it was, whenever you have a conversation with her, I had a conversation with her probably an hour after Colton's funeral, Hamilton, and it was an hour and a half long conversation, and that was obviously a very tough day, and I hung up the phone with her. I was like, man, I just feel so much better about the world and how you look at it, and she's so awesome to talk to, and I'm so happy that we got to make her such a big part of the book as it went on.
And thinking through that, like she's probably on about 20 pages in the book total, but it very easily could have been 80. It was just one of
Yeah.
those things where like it just would have gotten repetitive, saying over and over again how wonderful she is and how much she meant to coach and to the program. But like, I mean, she really could have been on half the pages of the book if we had wanted to write it that way. And it was cool to not only, see him give credit to her, but for him to mean every word of it and to show his I mean, just the way he cherishes her. And I think that's a cool thing. And she should be remembered very, very well around here, and I hope this book helps that happen.
And uh and she's another thing is she absolutely loves the University of South Carolina. Um, Over the last, I don't know, month and a half, uh, whenever, especially Dawn Staley's program, they love Dawn Staley's program. Whenever we beat UConn, one of the first people that texted me right after was Jerry Spurrier. So she absolutely loves the University of South Carolina. She even calls it her school. So she was such a joy to get to have conversations with and put a part of this book. Kevin, another cool part about this book that actually the process, it actually never made the book, but Kevin and I met with Coach Spurrier at the Graduate Hotel, 2 days before Christmas, 3 days before Christmas,
Something like that, yeah.
in 2024. And Kevin will remember this, and it still haunts me to this day that I didn't get this from him. But he pulls out a piece of paper, and
Oh,
he
man.
and I started, like, he starts drawing plays, and I coach football at Blythewood on the defensive side. And he pulls out this piece of paper and he starts drawing up some of his favorite plays or plays that he remembers. And I start drawing up stuff. And I said, well, if you saw this, how would you attack this? And if I did this, what would you do? So me and him went back and forth. I don't know. It was 10 minutes or so. It might not even been that long, but in my mind, it feels like it was forever. And I think he packed that piece of paper up and put it in his briefcase or his notebook. And we left. And I'm like, dude, I just got to draw. I just got to do chalk talk with Steve Spurrier. So I'm like, that was awesome.
Yeah, he's like, well, if you want to beat quarters, that's what you like.
Yep.
I mean, he's just drawing it up just in real time, and in that same part of the conversation, this takes you into the mind of Steve Spurrier a little bit. I remember him talking about one of the games where they were beating somebody downfield who was using quarters defense when he was at Florida. And not only was he remembering certain plays, he remembered his quarterback Danny Werfel's stat line from the game. And I looked it up while we were sitting there, and he nailed it. I don't remember what the numbers were, but he nailed the completions and the attempts and the yards to the number. I mean, it was, and I mean, that was 30 years prior, and it didn't matter. He nailed it, and it takes a special mind like that you know, to be the successful offensive coach that he was. But it was cool to see that live and in person.
Yeah, one of the things that um as a fan, as a reader in this, that I'm excited once the book comes out to get to dive into it. One of the things that I think you guys probably do a good job of, and you can tell us this, is there's Steve Spurrier, the football coach, and y'all have gone into this a little bit talking about Miss Jerry, but there's also Steve Spurrier, the man and the human. And for everything that we get to, and I know you're not going into personal like background, but you still capture who he was as a just as a human being, as a man, as a husband, as a father. Here he gets to coach. He gets to coach his son. One of his sons is on staff. Talk a little bit about that. How much does that kind of weave itself into the book?
Yeah, I think especially early, it's pretty prevalent. It can be a little harder to make sure that gets into every season as you walk through, but it is in various parts of the book too, but especially in the early chapters, you get it. You get to see, just a moment from his childhood, when he's talking with his father and the rest of his little league baseball team, about winning, and you see how that shapes his life, and you get the all-time great moment there where Graham Spurrier, his dad, basically just looks around and asks all these kids, like, who believes that, this is about, like, doing your best and having fun, and all the kids except Steve Spurrier raise their hand. Little Steve Spurrier keeps his hand down. He's like, uh-uh. And he tells them, no, if you're keeping score, you're supposed to win. And that's the type of mentality that Steve Spurrier carried the rest of his life. And there are other things about his personality, about who he is as a man, and all these things that you know show up throughout the book. But the early chapters, I feel like, are pretty loaded with some of that.
Another, talking about his personality, I think that one of the things that we tried to capture in this was, like Kevin said, his competitive nature. Whenever, like Kevin said, if they were keeping score, he wanted to win. And one of the things that you get kind of a glimpse into in the early chapters is, whenever Spurrier got to South Carolina, was, that was in November of 2004, and the fan base did not really believe that South Carolina could win big. And whenever he got here, he started talking about things that we hadn't, quite frankly, heard before. And but he genuinely believed that he could win big at South Carolina, and that was not just coach speak. And that was not, this. You hear a lot of coaches now when they get in winning the press conference, right? But these were things that he genuinely believed. And one thing that I remember was, whenever we were going through this, was asking him about, kind of changing the mentality of not only the people inside the program, but the people that were surrounding the program, whenever he got here, because, talking about his mentality towards the chicken curse and, moral victories. That was one thing that I remember. It really made him mad when people clapped after Carolina barely lost to Auburn in 2006. There's so many things like that you still talk to him about that kind of stuff to this day, and it made him mad whenever we lost. Like, Kevin, you remember having these conversations with him, and I remember talking to him about it, asking him about those 11 win seasons, and he won a lot of games here, but the games that we also lost, we put those in there, and just how much they still just drive him up the wall. And it just kind of all goes back to showing that competitive nature that he has. And it just goes to show that he is one of the greatest competitors that has ever coached in college football. And I think that's what makes him so special. I think that's what made him so great. Just, his belief that he could win at a place like South Carolina, and he did, and he took us to places that we'd never been. And Kevin knows this, because he still talks about it. It still drives him up the wall that we did not win an SEC championship when he was here. So and he goes out of his way to talk about how disappointed he still is that he couldn't get that done. But it's still the greatest era in Carolina football, and it was such a fun story to get to tell about, kind of his competitive nature and how he applied that to Carolina.
Yeah, and when mentioning the losses and such, you talk about, especially 2010 through 2013, that stretch where you win the SEC East and then win 11 games 3 years in a row. And the things he wants to talk about are, losing to Auburn in the SEC championship game, or then losing to them in 2011, at home in a game that ultimately kept him out of the SEC title game, or 2013, the game up in Knoxville against Tennessee. Like, he wants to talk about those things because they, they bother him to this day, because losing is not an option for him. When it happens, it truly, truly bothers him. And he's a big believer in reasons over excuses. He would, after a game, if things didn't go well, whether they won or lost, but if things didn't go well, like, he would tell you exactly why. But if he felt like players were making excuses, and this comes out in the book a few times, like, he would draw attention to that and he would call his own guys out. I remember him talking about Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt beat South Carolina 2 years in a row. And that was something he had never lost to Vanderbilt up to that point at Florida or South Carolina. And the second time they beat him, in the press conference, coach goes, "Yeah, I wonder what excuses our guys are going to make this time." Like, you don't make excuses for losing. You just win next time. Like, that's his mentality, and I think it comes through in the book.
Obviously, we're all fans here. Even you and Brent, Kevin, y'all are still fans, and I'm sure there comes moments where you try not to fan out and all that. But what, for you guys as fans, what was the most fun part of this, outside of hey, I got to spend time and hear from Coach Spurrier? What were some of the highlights for you guys being able to walk through this and to be able to write this?
Already given yours. I don't know, getting to do some chalkboard work with Coach might be might be up there. I don't know. One of the ones for me that was pretty cool, and this might not seem like a big deal, but he had already met with Brent and had some conversations. But when I got to meet him, and we did the whole classic Southern handshake and introduction, that kind of thing. There was no, like, awkwardness after. There was no, like, feeling out time. It was, like, immediately into just talking. And I don't know that people recognize how much, like, Spurrier actually does like people. Like, I know he can come across, a bit cantankerous or grumpy at times, just because, you often see him in the context of sport, but, like, he actually does care about people and like people. And so just that introduction turning into immediate conversation as if we'd known each other for a long time was a pretty cool thing. I think afterwards, Brent and I were just like, yeah, he's kind of like that great uncle that you had, that you don't see him for a while, and then you show up and you just talk to him, and it's a great conversation. And it was really easy to talk to him, despite, social settings not always being his favorite thing. Like, it was still really easy to sit and have conversations with him, both about football and not about football. So I think for me, that's one of the things that really sticks out.
I definitely just how easy he is to talk to. And that day, Kevin got to experience, kind of what I had for probably the previous 6 months or whatever, leading up to that. But my wife even made the comment one time. She said, "You've talked to him more over the last year or whatever than you probably talked to." It's like you're talking to a grandparent. And I told him that. I said, "Coach, I've talked to you more in the last year than I talked to my mom's dad in probably the last 20 years or whatever." And he, I think he appreciated that. Jerry told me when I talked to her on the phone, she said, "Brent, that's just where he is in life right now." She said, he loves just reminiscing. She told me, and this is just kind of one thing that just, like, stopped me in my tracks. She said, "I don't know what it is about you, but he loves talking to you." And I'm like, what me? Really? I'm like, I don't get it. I said, "I don't get it."
Kevin and I don't get it either.
Yeah, I don't. My wife doesn't get that. But no, just getting to reminisce about those times. because yes, we were going through all these games and all these seasons, but for me, it took me back to getting to see it. It put me back in the shoes of when I was 13 when he got hired. Just as I was going through and we were writing the chapter on the press conference, like I remember that day so well, like being at school, watching the press conference with kids that snuck out of class into the library at Richard Wynn. And, it's like 20 or 25 of us that snuck out, and it's like, dude, that's Steve Spurrier getting hired by South Carolina, which it just kind of took me back. Like that was so big for us back then. And, getting to go to all those games with my dad, and it was such a fun thing to get to reminisce as a fan, sitting there and, watching Carolina win all those games against Clemson and Georgia and Florida and Tennessee and Alabama, and teams that had just drug us through the mud while all three of us were growing up, like teams that we could not even compete with. And then he gets here and we start winning, and that was probably my favorite part of this, was just going through and reminiscing, my point of view for all those special memories that we all got to see as fans, getting to watch the Gamecocks win all those big games back then. And it was, and getting to do it alongside my dad. So that was probably a very special thing. And it's probably just as cool to Kevin's dad as it is my dad that we're writing a book and have gotten to know Steve Spurrier over the last 2 years too.
Yeah, and it's with all of that in mind, knowing without a shadow of a doubt now that he loves and cares about this place too.
Yeah.
It's pretty special, right? There are a lot of guys who coach and have Hall of Fame careers, and then they have an additional stop along their journey, and that place is kind of an afterthought. That's not the case with South Carolina for Steve Spurrier. South Carolina is not an afterthought. He and Jerry legitimately love this place. They love the community. They love the school. And to think that, the little old South Carolina Gamecocks hold a special place in the heart of one of the greatest coaches of all time, it's pretty special.
Yeah, and that's a great, Kevin. I love that. I love this the way you frame that, because that is how it seems, and I'm excited to see how that comes out on paper. To see his desire to win here, his desire to do something that's never been done here before, but also just in that transforming into loving a place and it becoming a second home for him. And so obviously we in this book, it's you guys writing, it's the voice and firsthand of Coach Spurrier, but who are some of the other voices that we would hear, will be names we would recognize that really help make this possible?
Like I said, Connor Shaw wrote the foreword. When we say that Steve Spurrier was a big part of this book, we really mean it. I mean, he was. I mean, his handprints and his storytelling is all over this. And Kevin and I, this book, as we told Coach Spurrier, like this ain't about us, right? We're just we're the liaison, right? We're just trying to tell a story. This is his story. Jerry Spurrier is a big part of this. We got to talk to some really cool people that helped us out along the way. Buddy Martin, who knows Spurrier really well, that has written books for him, lives down in Gainesville. Buddy was one of the first people that I got in touch with. Kevin obviously works with Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell, and now J.C. Sherbert. Who was JC was a big part, helping us get linked up with a lot of people to talk about this this era. Heck, I told JC, I said, I don't know where this book would have gone if you didn't help us get in touch with all these people. One person that we had to put in here at the 11th hour was a story that Everett Sands told me in the weight room at Blythewood. It's a great story about the culture of the program. So Everett Sands has got a section in here that he talks about. Tim Brando from Fox Sports now, Mike Morgan, Chris Lowe said some. He's got a little part about this in there as well, because Chris knows Spurrier just as well as anybody. You guys have heard me talk about him on this podcast before. Alan Piercy, who was such a major help to us along the way about just the whole process, and he was so encouraging to me as we were going through this, and about who to get linked up with, and he linked us up with the publisher, USC Press. And so I don't know where we would have been without Alan. Adrian Dupree, there's a very, very, very important story that Adrian plays a part in as you get towards the end of the Spurrier tenure, towards the end of the book. And I remember talking to Adrian and Spurrier separately about it, and it stopped me in my tracks when Spurrier, and I remember where we were when Spurrier, or where I was with him whenever he told me this story that it comes up in 2015. Jay Busby was another author, he is an author. He wrote Iron in the Blood, a book about Auburn, Alabama. Reached out to him. He's given us some great advice. There's so many people we talked to. Kevin's probably got some more that, but those are just the ones off the top of my head that have been a major help on this as well.
Yeah, and that was a lot of them. There was a handful of former players across actually multiple sports that I had the chance to speak with, that they didn't necessarily want to have some big long quote attributed to them or anything, but the conversation almost always would be like, well, let me tell you this, and there would just be something, and it would either be something that was that we could put in the book directly, or it backed up something that somebody else had already said. I got to talk to as Chris already, or as Brent already mentioned, I got to talk to some guys that I work with, Chris Clark and Wes Mitchell, a lot about this. Some other media folks, include guys I do work with, guys I don't, and just getting their perspectives on things. Some of them with quotes directly, and getting frankly just a lot of little nuggets. And when you're talking about a 200 something page book, you need a lot of little nuggets. and it was a huge blessing for so many people to be willing to share some of those with us. It's not a small ask to come to someone and be like, hey, can you help me with something for this book that I'm trying to get published? Like, it's a big ask, but so many people were willing to play some form of a role in that, and we're extremely grateful for it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and just to hear the names. And so as people are listening to this, and as they're looking forward to the names that they will recognize, to be able to hear from and get perspective. As yes, we are fans, but these are people who have either witnessed Spurrier, walked with Spurrier, been in the room, and to hear from them and their perspective continues just to show, one, how important this project is, and how important this book is for the history of South Carolina, and to be able to reminisce and to relive, as Brent talked about, dads and sons thinking back about these memories, and family members going to games together. And so I really am excited to get to read through the entire book, but also to be able to be able to have that same experience myself and to walk those to go along that ride as well through those just unforgettable years of Spurrier.
Just talking about just how fortunate Kevin and I were to do this, just two of the most unlikely suspects that the universe could have picked out to do this project. Hamilton, I can't let you get away with not telling what your caddy said that day. So you got to tell the story at Sage Valley that day.
Yeah, Brent and I got the opportunity to go play golf where we have no business
whatsoever
playing golf at Sage Valley in Aiken. Thankfully, Mr. Weldon Wyatt, who founder of Sage Valley, gave us the opportunity to take two of our students who definitely deserved it to go play down there. And so we were walking down the 16th fairway, and we've been getting to know our caddies throughout the day. And Turtle, who was my caddy, he was a Florida fan. Is that how it came up? He was a Florida fan. And so he was talking about Spurrier, and he just talking about being Florida football and Florida versus South Carolina and all that kind of stuff. And we're across the fairway from each other, Brent and I said, he was talking about Spurrier, and I said, oh yeah, I said, Coach Spurrier? I said, Brent knows Coach Spurrier. He's actually writing a book about him. And my caddy stops in the middle of the fairway as he's carrying my bag, looks me dead in my face as Brent and I are looking at the camera right now, and he goes, "That guy writes books?" And I about fell over. It was one of the funniest moments and I said, surprisingly, yes. And so, yeah, it's just, I joke and I kid with Brent about that. His writing abilities, or not his writing abilities, but his, sometimes his speaking the English language. Thankfully, so far in the book, I haven't come across any grammatical errors that Brent has.
It has been very polished up because, thankfully, the good folks at USC Press have gone through and Kevin even had to go in there behind me a lot and clean up where my Southern accent, drawl, uneducatedness self probably bled all over the pages. So
people are walking through the USC Press office going, anybody know what this word is? Yeah, and it's
found the guy from Winsboro.
I don't remember what chapter. I don't even remember the topic, but I remember one thing that Brent wrote that first I laughed and then I changed it. but he said
this isn't a word, Brent.
He said Spurrier reckoned he needed to do it a little different next time. And I texted Brent. I said, "You can say that. You can't write that."
Yeah.
Spurrier reckoned he needed to do it different next time.
Yeah, it's like, Brent, how do you do this even whenever the document corrects it for you? Like, how do you still manage to get around this?
Yeah, Microsoft Word has never met anything like Brent and Silvia.
Nope.
But yeah, that was and I got to be back in February. I got to be a witness to one of those phone calls with Brent and Coach Spurrier, and he is exactly, just to be able to listen 10 minutes on the phone. He is who you see him in a press conference, who you see him on the sidelines, who you hear people talk about him. That's who he is in a phone conversation. And that was just cool for me to be able to witness, and I'm excited to see how that fleshes itself out on the pages of the Spurrier Effect. And so, coming up here in the next little bit, obviously the book comes out in August. It is available for pre-order right now, which we'll link that in the notes for you to go ahead and put your copy in so you can get it the day of to crank you up for football season. But what are going to be some of the things that we see as y'all start to roll the book out? in preparation, and then once the book comes out, what are some of the things going on to pair alongside the Spurrier Effect?
Actually, here in a couple of weeks, Kevin and I are going to have the privilege to get to attend Coach Spurrier's Hall of Fame induction in Columbia, the South Carolina Hall of Fame. So that's something that now that the book will be public, that we're going to be able to go see Coach Spurrier get inducted into the South Carolina Hall of Fame. And after the book gets published in August, Coach Spurrier and I, we're still in the early stages of trying to nail down a home football game in the fall that Coach Spurrier will be coming up for. We haven't set that date yet, but we can tell you that USC Press has had some preliminary conversations with the athletics department, and the athletics department is very interested in being alongside us in this journey to help promote it. It sounds like that there's going to be an event at some point in the fall that is probably going to surround a home football game. Hamilton, you are being a little misleading to say that you didn't have anything to do with this. One of the coolest things that Kevin and I are going to get to do in the fall is this was your idea, actually. Talking about that conversation back in February when we were in Florida going to the Daytona 500, this was born out of your mind that when South Carolina travels to Gainesville this fall on October 9th, the night before the game that is on the 10th in Gainesville, we are going to be doing a book signing at Coach Spurrier's restaurant in Gainesville. We are very excited about that. Coach Spurrier is also very excited about that. Every time he calls, he's asking, yep, y'all still coming? Y'all still coming, right? Y'all still going to the game, right? And so taking a group of people down there, excited that Hamilton, that you'll be with us that weekend. And but yeah, we'll be doing an event at Coach Spurrier's place. Coach is excited that going to be a lot of South Carolina people in town that weekend, and we would love as many people to come to that at his restaurant. Sounds like it's going to be a great time for South Carolina and Florida fans, and that's the thing that I love about this book. This book isn't just for South Carolina fans. This book is for any fans of the SEC. We are all South Carolina fans here. But anybody that loves not just the SEC, but the history of college football, because this is a very important era in college football history, not just South Carolina. This is such a cool thing for college football fans. Anybody that loves college football, I think that this book will be something that they will love reading. Kevin and I didn't trash any other program or anything like that in here. We didn't. This wasn't something. Carolina just destroyed. Blah blah blah. Spurrier said this about such and such or anything like that. This was recounting South Carolina football, but there isn't anything. I mean, you can be a Clemson fan and read this thing. If Florida fans who still love Steve Spurrier. This is something that we think that everybody that loves college football will have interest in picking it up and reading it and getting to recount that era. And Tennessee fans, anybody, Alabama fans, Auburn fans, any Southern Cal fans, Oregon fans, anybody all over the country. This is something that everybody should be able to pick up and enjoy reading. So whenever we're in Gainesville that weekend, we expect, we would love for, Florida fans to come by and, and talk about their memories of that era, because Kevin, for me, getting to write about the game whenever he goes back to Gainesville for the first time in '06. That was something. There's a line in there that I sent it to Kevin and Hamilton separately about 3 weeks ago. I was like, I'm still so proud of how we put this in there. So October 9th at Coach Spurrier's restaurant in Gainesville, we're doing a book signing.
Yeah, and I think Brent covered most of the events, but there is one event that I was invited to and then uninvited to that I have to share. Uh, when we were talking with Coach, inevitably the conversation has to get to golf at some point. And, he knows obviously that Brent coaches golf and golfs a lot. And he said, one of these times when I come up, we'll all have to go play golf. And so I made the mistake of telling him that I'm not very good at golf. That, I am physically capable, but just bad because I haven't played enough and just have a lot of bad habits from playing baseball growing up, all this stuff. And so he looked at me for a second, kind of got this little look on his face. He goes, well, Brent and I will go golfing. And it was really funny because, he didn't mean anything, but that's just how he is. Like he wants things to be competitive. He wants
Yeah.
things to be high quality. He wants things to win. And so when I made the mistake of letting him know that I would have been a weak link on the golf course, my invitation was gone.
Well, Coach Spurrier, if you ever see this and you and Brent need a tag along, I will make myself available for that tee time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Gainesville, October 9th. The Gamecocks play down in Gainesville on October 10th, the night before. Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Gainesville, and so go ahead. Listen, if you were waiting around to get your SEC road game in for the year, great opportunity to go down to Gainesville. Gainesville, a great town to go to. Really, really cool college town. Great place to go. I'm excited to go to a game for the first time at the Swamp. That'll be a cool experience. But yeah, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill on the 9th, that Friday night before. Brent and Kevin and Coach Spurrier doing a book signing down there. I'm excited and thankful that the Coach Spurrier is going to make that happen. So, I don't know if any updates are coming out, and as the book comes closer, where can we get more information about the book as we get closer to August?
Well, on Wednesday, so theoretically, whenever anyone listening to this podcast will be hearing this, we will be making our official, so to speak, announcement, and that will include a few more details. But for the most part, what you need to know about the book, we've explained here. There will be a few instances in which we will have the opportunity to get on other shows, potentially on the radio, things like that, to promo the book. But man, I mean, USC Press has a nice summary of the book up, and I believe, and Brent, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Amazon link has that as well. So frankly, I mean, we're just ready for this thing to come out and be able to share it with the world. I think we're pretty set there.
Yeah. And you can find Kevin and I on Twitter or X, Twitter. And you can also find Kevin on Gamecock Central. But any updates that come out, we'll push them out on social media. Probably the best place, and our families are also going to help here too. So that's kind of the cool thing about this is this, like we said, this is not just Kevin and I's journey. We're going to have a lot of people helping us along the way. So any updates that come out, you won't miss them. Whether it be on Facebook or Gamecock Central or X at either one of our accounts on there, and any other specific updates, uscpress.com. If anything changes there, you can also find them on the forthcoming page on there as well.
I will say, and I should have mentioned this, we are in the process of putting together an excerpt to be released on Gamecock Central. I believe it's going to be for subscribers, but it could be completely free. I'm not 100% sure exactly how that's going to work, but there will be an excerpt released on Gamecock Central on Wednesday, and then there will be additional, conversations about the book on Gamecock Central later as well. And we are hopeful that there will be other opportunities on other shows to do the same thing.
Oh, so go check out Gamecock Central right now as you're watching this. As this episode comes out, the excerpt from the book will be up, and I think we have nothing against Gamecock Central around here, and so I think they've got some new deals running around to for new subscribers. If I've seen anything from y'all's new staff member.
Yes, yes. You can join up for just $1 right now. So if you go to Gamecock Central and you click on something and you realize that it's quote unquote behind a paywall, you'll actually see something that pops up that lets you know that you only have to pay $1 to get signed up. And I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, a dollar to get that, and it's not just to be able to read our excerpt, but it's also to get all the insider news and stuff that we provide over at Gamecock Central and our national team at On3, and the guys from inside the Gamecocks have joined us as well under the label of the Big Spur. So we've got a lot of things that would make that subscription worth way more than $1. So shameless plug there, but come see us.
Yeah, big things coming over there because Gamecock football is in the middle of a big recruiting run right now, and we're also about to have, and I don't know about Hamilton or Kevin, but one of my favorite things about subscriber websites like Gamecock Central is when there's a coaching search going on, and Carolina baseball is about to be going through one of those. So you should, if you want to catch any of that going on there, subscribe there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great time to jump in. It is one of those good times as baseball season begins to wrap up and we ramp into football season, and then baseball hits transfer portal and coaching search and all those kind of things. It's for the things that Gamecock fans care about. It is about to be that time of year, and so well, guys, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the book, and I thank y'all for this being really the launch here on Between Services, the really the announcement of what's to come and what's going to happen, and this project that you guys have worked so hard on, I know, and being able for all people to know the best kept secret probably in the Blythewood, Columbia area in the last couple of years is this project coming out. So, man, first off, congratulations to both of you, and excited to see where it goes and what happens moving forward with it.
Yeah, we're excited. Even if the secret was out, I don't think anybody would believe that. At least from my standpoint, everybody would have been like,
you write books?
This guy writes books.
This guy writes books. There are a couple people that before we shift gears to something or anything else, a couple people that we need to thank. The people at USC Press, we want to thank them for giving this book a home to be published out of. They've been right there with us for what, Kevin, the last year, maybe more. Just going through this process, just helping us through this process. The editing, the index part, all that stuff. The English department at Blythewood High School, I want to thank them. They've been very helpful. All the teachers that kind of we all run together at Blythewood, they've been really good supporters throughout this process, and helping, giving us some direction, and just kind of walking through it, asking how the book's going. But yeah, the English department specifically, they really came through in the clutch here over the last month or so, helping Kevin and I just kind of wrap up some of the stuff, and definitely thank our families. They've been very supportive. My wife specifically, she actually come walking in the house that night, that first phone call, and she put her ear up to the phone and she was like, "There ain't no way." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, she wouldn't have believed it if she hadn't walked in." But my wife has been very supportive and helpful throughout this process. She's while I've been typing away on a laptop, and she's running around here chasing two kids, and I know Kevin's wife's helped them along the way the same way. But yeah, our families have been a big part of this as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And my wife Danielle's a former English teacher too, and she got to witness some of the Brent Silvia musings along the way as well, and she helped with some of the early rough draft refining, I'll say. So just want to thank her specifically. But yeah, just a lot of people who helped make this happen, and I mean, we couldn't have done it without all of them. And I think it's a really cool way that this whole thing has come together.
Well, as we end every single episode here on Between Services, we're going to wrap it up with a devotion. And Brent Silvia has our devotion for tonight. So, Brent, I'm gonna ask you to take it away.
Yeah, this was like I said earlier, this was a kind of a ironic time to launch this book to the public because kind of the season that it happened in was born out of an empty classroom because seniors had left for the semester in their high school career, and this past Friday was the seniors at Blythewood. It was their final official day. We had our senior assembly, and for me it's always an emotional, special time as a teacher and a coach. But this one a little bit more so because this was my first freshman class whenever I got to Blythewood. And Hamilton, you and I were obviously very close as I transitioned to Blythewood High School, and Kevin as well. But this being my first freshman class, it was kind of a special day to see all those kids leave Blythewood, kind of get their senior moment on Friday during the senior assembly. And it's special, it's emotional, and it's good to see those kids that you've watched grow up. There were a few that I saw them, and I even told Coach Martin this. I said, had you told me that kid was going to turn out like that, I said I'd have never believed it. So it's always awesome getting to watch those kids grow up like they have over the last 4 years. Many of them asked me to sign their yearbooks or their senior banners, and I always put the same thing on there. I always, one of the last things I say before I sign it is, go make the world a better place. I always put that in there whenever I sign it. And as I was getting ready for this devotion, one thing that crossed my mind, I said, I hope that I had a positive impact on them. It's always a fulfilling moment when they come up to you and they give you a hug, or they say, thanks for everything, Coach. Over the last 4 years or whatever. That's part of the reason why I love teaching seniors. It's always fun to get to see them, in their final year of high school, kind of transition out of high school. And you guys have both been in student ministry, and you've worked alongside students as they move out of high school or college and into the real world or whatever, into their next transition and phase of life. And that's where that's kind of what came to tonight for our devotion, and I came to Romans 2:12, and it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." And we've all been there, right? We've all kind of, it was a different time whenever we graduated high school. This world today can be hard on young people. They deal with fears and anxieties that, quite frankly, we didn't even have to deal with whenever we graduated, 15, 16, 17 years ago. Hamilton, I know you were probably graduating in the 90s, right? But that's kind of the verse.
Are we close to the same age?
Yes, Ted, that was the joke. But you graduated in 08 or 09?
09.
Oh, so I didn't realize we were the same class. I thought you were older than me. But that's kind of the verse from Romans that I kind of got entrenched in, and it's so important and powerful. Just because graduating can be intimidating, but it's also an opportunity for these kids and these young people whenever they go out into the world to make it a better place. Which is one thing that I put in there every time I sign somebody's yearbook. And Jeremiah 29 also says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." So my challenge and motivation to the guys and girls that are graduating is take comfort in that. That big new world that you're about to step into. And the Lord has a plan for you. It's His world, right? We're stewards of His creation, and we're supposed to take care of it. And we're challenged to do good in His world, right? And take care and make it a better place than it is when you found it.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point there, with that Romans 12:2 verse of do not conform, but be transformed. And I think it's in a different context than faith, but we just spent an hour talking about a man in Coach Spurrier that did anything but conform. He did it his own way. He said what he wanted to. He went his own path. He was willing to be different. And as I think it's a great example of that's the way we ought to look as believers. We ought to sound a little bit different. Sometimes that means we sound a little bit offensive. Sometimes that means we sound a little bit, off compared to everybody else. We don't have to be just like everyone else. We are called to not conform, but to be transformed through the renewing of our mind because of our faith. Because our faith changes not just our heart as believers in Jesus Christ, but it also changes the way we think. It changes the way we speak. It changes the way we act. It does everything. It renews us. It doesn't tweak. It doesn't come in and, hey, we'll change this here. We'll move this a little bit. No, it renews. It takes that renewal is a picture of old cells dying and new cells coming to life. We become, 2 Corinthians tells us that we become new creations. And I think that's a great picture, Brent, for you as you send seniors out into the world. For you, even in a public school where we're stigmatized to not have these types of conversations. But for us just to drop those little nuggets of, hey, don't be someone who conforms. Be someone who instead is transformed, but also transforms others as you go into these places. And as we get the opportunities, we get to tell people, hey, why are you different? Why don't you conform? Why are you someone who is very different from everybody else? Why have you gone through this transformation? Well, let me tell you, it's because of what Jesus Christ did in my life. So, Brent, I love that picture, particularly in the context of we've spent an hour diving into the life of a man who was anything but conformed to what everybody wanted him to be in Steve Spurrier.
It was always, talking about doing it different. That was even the title of the book that we landed on, that USC Press helped us get to. When I told him that was the title, he said, just talking about doing it different, and that was something that like you just said, it's not a bad thing to be different, right? It helps you get noticed, and a college campus is a scary place for a freshman to step onto for the first time. And, thinking about the first time I stepped onto a college campus, it can be an intimidating place. You guys have also stepped on the college campuses for the first time, and it's, but like you said, it's easy to conform to, the ways of the world around us, and it's hard to be noticed for being different. But like we just talked about over the last hour and a half, is it's not a bad thing, right? It can be a very beneficial thing. But you can use that to also help others realize how why are you different, right? And tell them why you're different.
So I love that, and I think it's a great wrap to our episode and what we've been talking about here today. And so, Kevin, I do appreciate you coming on and being a part of the podcast. And obviously, just you've been a great friend, obviously, to Between Services as well. Of the time I've gotten to know you from your times coming on, and obviously you and Brent's relationship. But man, you've been a great resource and help for us, even as we're on this journey with our own show. And so thank you for coming on and being a part, and hopefully we get to put some eyes on the book, but not just that, but also to tell the story a little bit about behind it and why and how, and to make this thing happen. And so guys, thank y'all so much. As we talked about, make sure you go pre-order the Spurrier Effect, the deep dive into the Spurrier years here at the University of South Carolina, available on Amazon, available on USC Press. You'll be able to see both of those in the show notes. And you can catch our show, if you're new to Between Services, you can catch our show every single week. On Wednesdays, a new episode drops with Brent and me talking about all the latest sports here in the Southeast, and periodically we'll have a guest, such as we had with Kevin today, or somebody in our chaplain series, or somebody just who is knowledgeable about what's going on here in the world of faith and in the world of sports. And so, hey, every time that you listen to this podcast, we hope that you're encouraged, and we hope that you're entertained. And we look forward to seeing you next time here on Between Services, where we will make sure to save you a seat.